Is that what y'all do in Detroit?
Pretty much, that's, yeah, we got low budget.
That's a Detroit,
my hazmat suit.
rain jacket.
That's your hazmat suit?
That's my hazmat suit right there.
Well, I think it's a second for joining it. I was joking when we were doing my classes.
Detroit.
Alright.
I think, well, I'm way out of my depth here, but, so highway patrol is not the same thing. Highway patrol is only highway patrol.
It's like in Ohio, because Ohio. They might help. They help me for ways to help me, they don't. They don't.
Yeah.
And they don't investigate. They do drug addiction, that's not it.
It doesn't at all bend.
Now, that one arm doesn't bend at all.
Well, that's the one I should have done first.
Yes, you should have.
Alright, I got it. I got it.
It's like UBI.
There.
Or they can post you.
Come here, girl.
Environmental, state development.
Do you want my belt? We can wrap her chair and hold her up.
That is some creepy shit.
Especially if she's gonna be an exposure.
No, that's good. That's good flavor. Yeah, it's there.
She's slumped over.
She's at a tough day.
Well, that's what I'm gonna look like.
That's
tomorrow
gonna be
morning.
where we're gonna get it anyway.
That's what it looks like I ate tonight.
2 more sips. Are you gonna go into town?
No.
We're gonna close that place down at 10 o'clock. Woo! 10 o'clock. It's so early. It should be open until regular bar time on Friday nights.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Exactly.
It started recording, then she put that bag over your head.
Well, alright then.
Yeah, didn't want to miss that.
Ready when you are, Chief.
Yeah, it's already recording.
Alright. Good morning, everybody. I'm Joe DeLay, paramedic for Detroit Fire Department, 10 years paramedic. Already had our safety briefing this morning. That's going to stay in effect. I'm going to talk to you today about the proper operation of an AED. What is an AED? Automated external defibrillator. AED. They come in many shapes, many sizes. Got the heart start, that's my personal favorite, the red one up there, go from LifePak, Zoll, and a bunch of different models. I'm sure you've probably seen them out and about in your daily life here. To get into a real brief history, defibrillator was invented by Claude Beck. 1947, Beck was a pioneer of heart surgery. He was an open heart surgeon. Now, the first defibrillator was not automated, and it was not external. It actually used 2 spoon. There we go. It used 2 spoon-like electrodes that were applied directly to the heart. He used this during open heart surgery. It looked something like this, and it would deliver electricity to the heart to use that lethal over the I'm going to fast forward a little bit. 9 years later, Paul Zoll, and Zoll is a name that some of you in the medical community will recognize, maybe not. He used a more powerful unit to perform the first closed chest defibrillation. Still was not automated. Belfast, ambulance transported physicians first achieved pre-hospital defibrillation in 1966. Defibbing by EMTs without the presence of physicians was first performed in Oregon in 1969. So this is still relatively newish technology. And then the automated AED was created in 1978, made with sensors that are placed on the chest to decide if defib, ventricular fibrillation, is occurring. If it's detected, the device gives proper instructions providing an electrical shock. These automated devices have been able to reduce the training that is needed to use defibrillators and have also saved thousands of people's lives. Okay, so before it could just be physicians, before that was open heart surgeons. Now, Joe Blow on the street can pick one of these up, go put it into operation, and potentially save somebody's life. Now, why has the need increased for the AED? Well, that's pretty simple. We live much longer than we used to. Okay? Before, what used to kill us, it used to be disease, it used to be famine, things of that nature. And now we live a lot longer, and we appreciate that by eating like garbage and having a lifestyle that doesn't necessarily support a long life, but that's what we're doing. So what difference does it make? Survival rates for individuals with ventricular fibrillation, we call it VFib, treated by AEDs have been reported between 0 and 31%. You think 0 to 31, well, that's not too great. Before, we were doing 0 to 6 with CPR alone. So these things have actually made a great difference as far as survival rate goes. All right, and been doing this for 10 years. I can personally verify, I have seen many, many cases where an AED has done better than I have done, okay? I carry more drugs than you can imagine. I carry a ton of equipment. And I see law enforcement officers who arrive first on scene and properly operate an AED bring people back. Seen it many times. Their save rate, honestly, when they get there first and use this, is much higher than ours. Officer in Langley, right there, receiving an award. I got a couple of police officers in the room. You guys have any instances as far as your officers using, or any departments that you know? You got?
We had canine trials a couple of years back. Canine handler from out of state was there participating, experienced some he was in distress and also heart related.
Okay.
The deputies that were there participating, went to their cars, got the AED device and brought them back.
That's fantastic. There's a bunch of stories just like that all around. Most police officers, most municipalities do carry these in their cars, and when they use them, they do have a great deal of success with them. All right. Now, this is an emergency, okay? We don't save everybody, and we do not shock asystole, okay? Flatline, somebody flatlines in the movies, a lot of times you see, oh, charge, shock, no, they're back, they're sitting up to talk again. That unfortunately doesn't happen. AEDs will shock only 2 types of cardiac arrhythmias: ventricular fibrillation and pulseless ventricular tachycardia. Okay, it's important. Ventricular tachycardia is a different kind of arrhythmia. If it's got a pulse, it is treated differently than if it does not have a pulse. Unfortunately, most of these machines cannot tell if you have a pulse, and there still is some discrepancy, even the credible websites, on whether or not the AED will recognize and shock it. Most say it does. So that is kind of important when you're checking. Make sure the patient is pulseless. Okay, if you're
It's what?
Pulseless, does not have a pulse. Okay, because if you're using this and shocking ventricular tachycardia or defibbing it, you could actually potentially do them some harm. And asystole, the flat line, that requires a combination of high quality CPR and drugs to get them into a rhythm potentially that you can shock or get them back. And when I say this is an emergency, in case that was lost on anybody, that's Johnny and Roy from emergency. We're the best paramedics out there. They have never lost a single patient. Sir?
I heard the machine will tell you, like, if you can't do something or not.
Oh, well, yeah, and we'll get into it a little bit more. These are completely automated, so it'll tell you. Some of them are a little more automated than others. Some of them require you to take the intervention and shock. Some of them will shock themselves. So if the AED detects one of these 2 rhythms that it can shock, it will charge, and then it'll either tell you press this button, and then you would manually press the button, and you would deliver that shock, or it would shock itself. But it's on you to do everything for it, check the pulse, do the CPR. Okay, so we'll get into that just a little bit here. All right, some important components of the AED. You've got the battery pack. Those have a life that's printed on them. Some range from a couple years, some range a little bit longer than that. You got adult pads in most of them. You got pediatric pads in most of them. And a pediatric key depends on the model. And we'll get into a little bit more with the pediatric key. But the pediatric key allows you to use adult pads on a pediatric patient. You insert something into it, and it lowers the voltage, or excuse me, lowers the joules. And a razor, it depends on the supplier. You're gonna wanna, if you run into a gentleman with a lot of chest hair, if at all possible, you wanna remove that chest hair, because that will impede your electric connection there. Alright, so, the rhythms we spoke of, okay. Asystole, I kinda kept this up here for a reason. This is V-fib, okay? This is when your heart is kind of just quivering. The whole thing's kind of just shaking. If that's not corrected, that will turn into asystole, which you can see here, flatline. At this point, CPR and drugs is what you need. That is a rhythm it will shock and V-tach, okay? The pulseless V-tach, that can have a pulse. If it has a pulse, it's probably not going to have one long, but pulseless V-tach, pretty much the bottom of your heart is firing without letting the top of the heart refill it. You're not getting the circulation that you need. So, will not shock, will shock, will shock. All right, now why are these so important? Effects of delayed treatment. Uncorrected, these cardiac conditions, the ones that we just went over, will rapidly lead to irreversible brain damage and death. Once cardiac arrest takes place, after approximately 3 to 5 minutes in cardiac arrest, irreversible brain damage may begin to occur. So I don't know what your response time is. Ours we consider pretty good at 7 minutes. Well, if someone's been in cardiac arrest 2 minutes before we get there, if they call us the second they drop 2 minutes before we get there, they're already got some brain damage. That's why these things are so important out there. For a lay person, before we get there, go ahead and use that, correct it, which is what I was talking about more with the police officers too. Every minute that a person in cardiac arrest goes without being successfully treated by an AED or by some other form of electrical intervention, chance of survival decreases by 7% per minute for the first 3 minutes and decrease by 10% per a minute as time advances beyond 3 minutes. So once again, it goes back to on the best day, we're getting there after brain damage is taking place. All right, requirements for use. AEDs are designed to be used by lay persons who ideally should have receive some training, okay? That being said, most people can pick one up. It will walk you through everything that you need to do. You just gotta open it. As being shown here, kids are doing better than we are. 6th grade students have been reported to begin defibrillation within 90 seconds, as opposed to train operators within 67 seconds. Bras with metal underwire and piercings on the torso must be removed before using the AED to avoid some interference, as long as they recommend also any kind of nitroglycerin patches be removed. This is good, should be. Mythbusters did test it. You might get a little bit of an arc, but not really a big issue. If you have time and if you can, absolutely remove it. Now, say you pull them out of a pool and they're wet, pull them out of a lake and they're wet, it is pretty important to dry them off. Not only will the pads not stick, you don't want them sitting in a puddle of water. You're going to be kneeling next to them. If they're dripping wet, they're in water, you're in water. You're playing with electricity, that's not a good idea. Okay, survey says. AEDs immediately present during Chicago's Heart Start program over a 2-year period. 22 individuals, 18 were in arrest with an arrhythmia that an AED can treat. 11 of them survived. Of these 11, 6 were treated by bystanders with absolutely no training in AED use. So once again, it's preferred, but as the survey says, not necessary. All right, placement and availability. AEDs are generally kept where health professionals and first responders can use them. Healthcare facilities and ambulances, obviously, as well as public access units which can be found in public places, including corporate and government office, shopping centers, restaurants, public transport, and any other location where people may congregate. I imagine you've seen them here. They're all over the halls. All right. Or to make them highly visible, public access AEDs are often brightly colored and are mounted in protective cases near the entrance of a building. When these protective cases are open, the defibrillator is moved, some sound a buzzer to alert nearby staff to their removal, though this does not necessarily summon EMS. I don't know any that do actually summon EMS, maybe they're out there. So you still need to call 911 if you ever use one. That's the first step in all of this. Call 911, activate an emergency response. get those responders to your location as you're doing everything you need to do. All right. Does anyone know where the closest AED right now is to you? Have you seen it?
Out in the hall.
Absolutely, it's down the hallway. Generally kept near, as I was looking, they're generally kept near fire extinguishers, for whatever reason, highly visible. And that second one is, like I stated earlier, directly outside of the medical office here. That way, if their medical responders get a call, they're walking right out, they grab it, they're on their way. All right, preparation for operation. Most manufacturers recommend checking the AED prior to every period of duty, so that's pretty much every day for most people on a regular basis. Some units need to be switched on in order to perform a self-check. Other models have a self-check built in. The life packs that we used at 3 a.m., they would do their self-check, so we didn't have to actually do it, and they would keep a record. All manufacturers mark their electrode pads with an expiration date. It's important to ensure the pads are in date. It is very important to ensure they're in date. They have a conductive gel on them. It's not that the electricity and the wires are going to go bad, but that gel can dry up. When that gel dries up, you're not going to get good conductivity, and it's not going to work properly. Usually marked on the outside of the pads. Some models are designed to make the date visible through a window, although others will require the opening of the case to find the date and stamp. So, status indicator. Green's good. And you can see if it was red, if it had an issue, if the battery was running low or something like that, it failed the self-check that it had done, that would be red. It would be readily easy to see. And it's got an expiration date, that one printed directly on the front of it. Most of them are printed on the inside on the pads. All right. AED is automatic, because the unit's ability to autonomously analyze the patient's condition. To assist this, the vast majority of units have spoken prompts, and some may also have a visual display to instruct the user. The visual display is used for the people who have maybe hearing issues, and it also adds an extra help to people who may have never used one before. And external refers to the fact that the operator applies the electrode pads to the bare chest of the victim. There are internal defibrillators. They're generally with pacemakers that go right under a patient's skin, attached directly to their heart, and if it senses one of these dysrhythmias, it'll charge and shock directly from them. So they're actually wearing it all the time. Quite a few people have that, and they do work very well. All right, first step, open the case. It's going to tell you to apply the pad to patient's bare chest. Appropriate pads for the appropriate patient should be used. A lot of them come with adult, a lot of them come with adult and pediatric. The ones that don't come with pediatric pads generally have a pediatric key. Chest should be dry and bare if possible. Shave patient chest if possible and if applicable. And follow visual instructions on pad placement. Right on here. I'll get into this even a little bit further. They're pretty idiot-proof. Okay, it shows you exactly where you want to apply the first pad. And exactly where you want to apply the second pad. There's only one place for this to go, but we'll go hands-on with that in just a little bit. General placement right here. Now for a child, someone under 55 pounds, 8 years of age, front and back. This is shown up there. All right, then you want to stand clear. After the pads are on, it's going to tell you that it's analyzing the patient. Now, stand clear. Turned on or open, AED will instruct the user to connect the electrodes to the patient. Once the pads are attached, everyone should avoid touching the patient as to avoid false reading by the unit. Okay, when you got these electrodes on, or if you see the little 3 leads that you might have on at the hospital, any kind of movement will affect what that looks like on the screen. Working at a hospital, we had a patient who was on a monitor. The monitor started screaming. It was a VFib alarm. We walked in and we found him rapidly moving his hand, and it was creating what appeared to be VFib, VTAC. It was not. As soon as he stopped moving his hand, he went back into a number on the monitor. All right. It will either then tell you shock advised or no shock advised. No shock advised, continue CPR. Shock advised, stand clear. If it gives you that prompt, stand clear. Device determines that a shock is warranted. It will use the battery to charge and deliver the shock. Device system is not only safer, charging only when required, but also allows for faster delivery of current. And most units, as I stated, will have a shock button, a big orange button. If it's got a button on it, that's generally the only one. If it doesn't have that button, that means it'll deliver it by itself, and then you stand clear, and it will deliver the charge. And no shock advised. Resume CPR if the unit does not detect a shock rhythm. It will not charge, and it will advise to resume CPR. And you're going to do this repeat until trained professional arrives. If you're a trained professional, you're going to do repeat until you transport, until you cease resuscitation. All right. Let's talk about some electricity. First commercially available AEDs were monophasic. This means one shock was delivered, one direct jolt from the pads, hit you once. Generally 360 to 400 joules depending on the model. Newer AEDs tend to be biphasic. That means the energy hits you once on the way over, once on the way back, so lower current delivers the same total amount of electricity. And we've switched to that generally more. The monophasic, the one jolt was ending up burning people and causing cardiac tissue damage. So most monitors and AEDs you'll see at least will have the option to be monophasic or biphasic. Our system uses a biphasic. Alright, so I know you're asking, but what about the children? Pediatric key, as we discussed, for pediatric pads, generally accompanying the AED. Key reduce the amount of electricity delivered and will tailor CPR instructions to a child or an infant, as opposed to the 360 or the 120 back and forth, generally 2 to 4 joules per kg, can be 50 to 100 joules. Pediatric key we spoke about looks just like that. It inserts into a part of the AED depending on the model that you're using, and it will have different instructions and different visuals, obviously, on where to put the pads. Now, can I use adult pads on a child? If you do not have the pediatric pads or the pediatric key, very unlikely today, highly unlikely today that you're going to find yourself out there without the application you used on the child. Yes, you can. Okay, they're not going to get any worse off than they are now. If you don't intervene, well, they're dead. If you find a kid who doesn't have a pulse, you're not going to change the pulse history.
What about the positions of the pads?
The positions of the pad, very good question. So these are going to be adult pads, they're going to be big, it's going to stay the same. It's going to stay the same for a child, excuse me. It's going to be one on the front and it's going to be one on the back. Okay, it's going to deliver that big shock, but if it's my kid and I have the option of, well, our heart's not beating and I can try, I'm going to try. So, and most of the pads right now, nowadays are what's called attenuated. They will read the resistance they get on the skin, and they can adjust the electricity even if they are the adult pads. And if they're dead, you're not going to kill them anymore. You're only going to help them. And to answer your question, an adult pads front and back of a child use as you normally would. Recent upgrade, all AEDs approved for use in the United States have electronic voice prompt to users. Talk you through each step. Because the user of an AED may be hearing impaired, as we spoke of, many AEDs include visual prompts as well. All right, we've already spoken a little bit. We'll speak a little more on the benefits. Studies have shown that the out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, public access to defibrillators, when used, were associated with 40% median survival when operated by non-dispatched lay personnel. 40%. That's pretty significant. They have the highest likelihood of survival. So a lot of times you'll have them at the big sports arenas, higher probability of sudden cardiac arrest, and then as you can see, our police officers use them as well. I don't want to get sued. So a lot of people might not get into a situation, might just stand away, well, I don't want to be responsible, I don't necessarily know what I'm doing, I've never done it before, I don't want to get sued. It won't be. There's something called Good Samaritan laws. As long as you're acting in good faith and trying to help somebody, they can't sue you. They might try, they can't successfully sue you. So if you can, help somebody out. Are they reliable? That depends on you. That depends on who's using and maintaining them. An AED that is properly maintained, make sure the battery's charged, make sure the battery's replaced when it's supposed to be replaced. Pads that are up to date, they are absolutely very reliable. But they're not being maintained. That's the problem. People order them, get them in their facility, stick them in a closet somewhere, and 5-6 years later, battery's dead, pads are out of date, somebody goes into cardiac arrest, that AED is about as useless as you can get. And also, people are a lot of times ignorant to the location. So, you get a chance, wherever you're at, it's an issue, go ahead, maybe look around, find where that nearest AED is, just in case you end up needing it. AED alone is not enough. Pulseless individual CPR along with AED application is needed for a positive outcome. So you have to do CPR. You have to keep that oxygen going to the brain. You have to keep the blood flowing. So while one person's doing CPR, another person's activating 911, get on your cell phone as you're going to get that AED. Hey, we got someone. Get them on the way to you and get that AED over to you. We're going to fly through a real quick overview of CPR healing. And second on top of the first, and interlock your fingers, lock your elbows straight. That's very important. If you've never done it before, you will get exhausted. You keep doing this. You lock your arms and you let your body weight. Especially with me, it makes it a whole lot easier. Do some compressions. 30 compressions, counting out loud, at least 2 inches deep. Stop compressions, get 2 rescue breaths. Now, that's an asterisk here. Stop compressions to give 2 rescue breaths. If it's your best friend, if it's your child, stop and you can give 2 rescue breaths. A lot of people don't carry them out there. We'll get into them just in a second here. If you don't have a barrier, do not put your mouth on somebody else's mouth that you do not know. Special considerations. Make sure the scene is safe before performing any life-saving attempts. If someone's down, if someone's unconscious, sometimes there's a reason for it. Actually, all the time there's a reason for it. Sometimes it's a malicious reason. And as we spoke of, if it's wet, sticky, not yours, do not touch it. There's these pocket masks you can put on your keychain. There's these pocket masks you can put in your car. And if you really want to get fancy with it, there's a whole pocket BVM that you can go ahead and stick in your bag. So in summary, AEDs greatly increase the rate of survival in a person experiencing sudden cardiac arrest. Popularity has grown and technology has greatly improved. Always activate 911 or have someone else do it before being tied up with resuscitation. And you cannot get in trouble for acting in good faith and trying to save a person's life. Both children and adults can benefit greatly from the use of an AED. All right, the end of that quick presentation. And we're going to do what we did yesterday. It was very enjoyable. We're going to do a quick knowledge assessment. So I'm going to read them, get them out. As soon as I read it, shout it out if you know it. AED can be used on adults, children, farm animals, or A and B. A and B, yes. Question 2. First defibrillator had 2 pedals that resembled forks, spoons, teacups, and scissors. Yes, spoons. Spoons. Creator of the first defibrillator was a Detroit paramedic, tennis player, open heart surgeon, or disc jockey.
Open heart surgery.
Heart surgeon, yes. AEDs are generally located in every room of all buildings, in the janitor's closet of most buildings, by the driveway of most buildings, or by the entrances and medical offices of most buildings.
Last one.
That's the last one. It's wet, sticky, and not yours. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. Or all the above.
All the above.
All the above. Don't touch it. It's gross.
Man, you're a smart guy.
On the painter?
I had to tailor it to the class.
Not that.
True or false? AED alone is enough to save a person in cardiac arrest.
Oh, false.
False. Absolutely. You need CPR. You need to activate that first responder. A lot of times they need drugs. Most of the cops get there real quick, then those guys save them and get an award. We just take them to the hospital after. True or false? You should have chest hair. You should shave the chest hair or remove bras that contain underwire prior to use of an AED. True. True. Absolutely true. And question 8, true or false, AED pads can be used on pediatric patients in the unlikely, very unlikely event that no pediatric options are available. True. True. Save that kid. Question 9, what was one of the first steps to take prior or during the application of an AED? Panic and cry, call 911, activate first responders, cut off the patient's pants, stop, drop, and roll.
All 911.
Call 911, get us on the way. And 10, what does AED stand for? There you go. So we'll just real quick, these are these training models here. These life packs aren't the greatest as far as the training model goes. So these are the paddles. Once again, they have very clearly marked on the pad placement here. But we couldn't this morning get this trainer to go past the prompt of apply pads. So
Call for help now.
activate your first
Remove all
response, right?
clothing from patient's chest.
Remove all the clothing, remove the underwear bra if you can, shave it, a lot of them will come with shaving kits, and they're very simple. Very few options to mess this up. There's one place for this to be plugged
Pull
in,
red handle to open bag.
and there's only one way for it to be plugged in. So you would open it up, it would
Look at
prompt
the
you.
pictures on pad.
Now this one's actually kind of a hybrid. It's got a key, it looks like, appears there.
Apply pad
There's your
to
shock
bare
button.
skin.
Okay.
Exactly as shown in the picture.
And that's where this AED gets
Press
stuck.
pad firmly.
So we're going to shut her off now. But then, as we spoke, it would go on to analyzing. If it detected that it needed a shock, it would charge. This one does have a manual button that you would then make sure that you're clear. That's probably the better option, honestly, because it allows human intervention. If somebody's being silly and hanging out near the patient, they're going to get shocked if this thing's shocked by itself. So make sure everybody's clear. This thing's going to light up big and red. It's going to make a lot of noise at you until you push it. You push it, you resume CPR, and then you go until first responders arrive, or first responder until you get a pulse, or till you end the resuscitation. So real quick, any questions?
Yeah, are you bitter that you don't get the award?
No, no, those guys deserve it. Honestly, no. Our cops are great, and a lot of law enforcement agencies that I work with are great. And guess what? They got there quicker than I did. So that's the thing. They stopped the clock quicker. They had, man, time to that. They stopped the clock quicker, and they had a more viable patient, and they did what they were supposed to do, and they survived, and they deserve every bit of that. So, any other questions? Well, thank you very much for your time. You guys have a nice day. It's been a pleasure.